back to Alice Talks Football and welcome back to another live Manchester United news, transfer news and update show. Reports coming out of Italy that Sancho has an agreement with Napoli. Now, why is that big? Because Chelsea agreed to pay the fee for Sancho, but they couldn't agree terms with Sancho. But it looks like Napoli have some kind of agreement on terms with Sancho, which means that maybe they've agreed on some kind of wage that Sancho would be willing to leave United for, and now they can go into Man United and try and agree a price. Obviously, we know, and there was reports that, Chelsea were willing to spend 25 million, Juventus were willing to spend 25 million, Napoli are trying to lowball him for under 20 million, United are going to hold out for 25 million because of PSR issues. But it is being reported that Napoli have an agreement and have reached an agreement with Jadon Sancho from Di Marzio. I think Di Marzio is credible when it comes to Italian media. He used to be very credible, then he lost his credibility a bit. I think when it comes to Italian media, though, he does have good sources of information. Now, talking of good sources, the Muppeteers have spoken about Antony. They believe Antony's exit is happening, and Fabrizio Romano has also given an update on Antony's exit. It looks close. There's Como, there's Italian teams in for Antony, but Antony's giving priority to Betis. But because of the amount of teams in for Antony, Betis have got to go and give Manchester United a serious bid. So it looks like the here we goes for Antony and Sancho are looking very possible potentially this month, which will be big because we can bring Mbeumo in without sales, but after Mbeumo we need some sales to be able to go on for that midfielder and that striker and more. There is talk of United blocking a move for Højlund to Inter. We will talk about that news story, an update on Mbeumo from Romano again, and the latest on Mbeumo. So yeah, there's lots to talk about in today's show, but big up everybody for watching. Hope you're doing well, and I don't know if you're living in the UK. If you're watching, let me know. Actually, let me know down below. Where do you live? Where are you based? But it's hot. It is hot today, and I am sweating already, so I'll do my best in this live. I might have to turn the fan on, which means there could be noise. It's one of those days. It's one of those days, and I went outside because I wanted to do some work outside, and I've got all these like little black bugs on me. I'm like, and then on my computer screen, it's honestly, it's one of those days. Yeah, if you're in the UK, it's baking. And look, people say, oh, like 30 degrees in the UK, it's 30 degrees in so many countries all the time. Like 30 degrees in the UK, which I don't know what that is in US degrees, but 30 degrees in the UK is just, it feels like 40 because this country's not made for the heat. But yeah, we'll start with the Sancho news. We'll go into all the other stories and information. So I'm going to get my screen up. Bear with me. About Sancho. So, just so you can see where I'm getting the information from, because people sometimes accuse me of making up information when I clearly do show you where the information is from on my screen at all times. And it has been reported that Jadon Sancho has come to an agreement with Napoli and has given them priority ahead of Juventus. And I think Di Marzio is a good source of information. He's not as good as he used to be, but I think when it comes to Italian media, he's a good source of information. The only thing with Di Marzio is he's an agent's mouthpiece, and he will sometimes put out what agents want to be put out. But he has connections, and he's saying that Sancho has come to an agreement with Napoli and has given them priority ahead of Juventus. And you might be thinking, again, why is that huge news? For me, if Napoli had agreed a £25 million deal with Man United for Sancho, okay, that's good news, but Chelsea did that and Sancho wouldn't go. We're now being told that Sancho's come to an agreement with Napoli, so we're talking about potentially terms being agreed. I'd assume if terms were agreed officially, we'd have a Romano or Ornstein update, but potentially I think what this means is maybe terms are verbally agreed. Maybe Sancho and Napoli have come to an agreement. Sancho said to Napoli, I'm willing to join for these terms. Napoli like, cool, we'll get you that. And Sancho's given priority to Napoli. Now, this comes just hours after Juventus reportedly offered Manchester United 25 million for Sancho and were working on the Sancho deal. It now comes that Sancho has an agreement with Napoli and has given them priority ahead of Juventus. Now, we've been told that Juventus, they're willing to pay up. They're willing to give us 25 million for Sancho, but they haven't agreed terms for Sancho. Chelsea are willing to pay up. Chelsea are willing to give us 25 million for Sancho, but Sancho couldn't agree terms with Chelsea. We now have talk and reports that Sancho has finally agreed terms with a club. But it's the one club that don't want to give us 25 million for him, which is just classic. It's just classic. That is the big step. That is the big first sign in regards to a Sancho exit. And look, I think for me, considering we got 5 million from Chelsea, I'll take 20 million for Sancho just to get him off, just to get him off the wage bill. I would take 20 million for Sancho because we've already got the 5 million and we just wanted 25 million and we've already got the 5 million. So that's sort of how I feel on this Jadon Sancho situation as well. Is the connection all right, guys? Or are we a little bit laggy? Is Sancho in the last year of his contract? So yeah, Napoli have to buy, not loan. I mean, they can loan him, but United are very clear, like, this is the last year of his contract. We want money. It puts us in a weaker position to get a good price for Sancho. I mean, we can extend his contract by another year, like Mbeumo. And Mbeumo's in the last year of his contract, but Brentford could extend it another year and then 2 years left. Whereas we're obviously not going to extend Sancho's contract for another year because he's on like nearly 300k a week. But yeah, it puts us in a position basically where, because he's got 1 year left on his contract, and I think Napoli know that we're not going to extend that, whereas Brentford are very likely to extend that with Mbeumo if they wanted. It puts us in a weaker negotiating position. I assume in that sense to get a big fee for Sancho, but I think we've got the 5 million from Chelsea. Let's just ask for 20 million. My screen keeps saying, like, I've got a notification that popped up on my screen. Everyone's saying connection is good, saying that the connection is bad. But StreamYard's been really glitching lately and telling me my connection is bad. And then I do a Wi-Fi test and I'm at like 40 megabits per second, which is, a lot of places are better, but it's not half bad. StreamYard likes to do that. Okay, connection is good. We do have a 1 year option on Sancho if we wanted to, yeah. I think when you're on that kind of money, we want him gone so badly. I mean, we could pretend to Napoli that, we'll just extend his deal by another year, la. But realistically, Napoli know that we're just not the slightest bit interested in doing that or entertaining that. Alice, have you seen the big update for Romano has put on Mbeumo? No, because it's not a big update. It's not a big update. Romano is asked about Mbeumo and he's given an update on it, and he's just telling us, everybody, talks are ongoing. Man United want to do a deal. He's basically repeating what we already know, but there is obviously some encouraging news coming out on Mbeumo to Manchester United. And obviously Spurs are now in for Semenyo, so even more encouraging signs. But it was reported that, Brian Mbeumo to Man United could progress quickly, although there's a feeling it might be done after the June 30th deadline. We'll dive into Mbeumo news in a second. I don't know about Onana leaving. United want Onana to leave, but the possibility of Onana leaving is difficult because of book value, because of wages, because of form. And we've got updates on Rashford's future. We've got updates on Antony's future. We will talk about Mbeumo, but look, as Clive said, boring United is boring, and Mbeumo will take till the end of the transfer window. I mean, the goal is to get him for pre-season, so hopefully it doesn't take to the end of the transfer window. Like, I can wait another week for Mbeumo for saving 5 million quid. I can't wait another month for Mbeumo. That's how I feel. It's dragging on. Obviously Brentford are asking for ridiculous 70 million. We don't want to pay that, but it's one of those where it's like, come on, hurry up, Manchester United, hurry up. So yeah, let's talk about Antony, because there has been some encouraging news in regards to Antony. Obviously, Sancho agreeing terms is the hardest part. It looks like he's come to some kind of agreement with Napoli. So I'm assuming maybe he hasn't agreed terms, but he's reached some kind of agreement with Napoli, maybe on verbal, saying, Napoli have said, we'll give you this. And he said, yeah, I want you over Juventus. So if Sancho's agreed terms with Napoli, that's the hardest part. Juventus were ready to offer 25 million to get a deal done. Napoli are trying to get him for less. It could depend on what Napoli offer now. Napoli, now they've got what's reported to be the heads up from Sancho. I guess it depends on what they offer. But I want to talk about Antony, because there is some big encouraging updates from Antony, again, coming out from some good sources. So this was said by the United Muppeteers, who are a good source of information. They've said that Antony to Real Betis is moving and is probably going to happen as the player and the club want the move. So again, they're saying Antony to Real Betis should happen, permanent deal. Now, Real Betis have been bidding like 20-ish million for Antony, 25 million. United want 35 million. There's about a 10 million valuation really between United and Betis. Antony's pushing for the move. United want the move to happen. Betis want the move to happen. They've just got 25 million for Cardozo, who's going to Atletico as well. So Betis have got a bit of money. Antony helped them get European football. And Antony is reportedly, according to Luckhurst, willing to take a 30% wage cut. Antony's, willing to move from 150k a week to 100k a week to get this move to Betis. Like, that's massive. The fact that Antony is willing to cut his wages by 30% because he wants to move and turn down Italian clubs. The fact that United want to sell and Betis want him, this deal should happen. Antony's been very good and lowered his wages. And it's mad. The one player that goes out on loan proves himself as the one player that's willing to lower his wages. Antony did a lot more than Sancho on loan, and he's willing to lower his wages and Sancho hasn't been. Tells you everything about attitude. And that's probably why I always thought Sancho was better than Antony, but that's probably why Ten Hag preferred Antony to Sancho when you deep it now, because it tells you about attitude. And I couldn't understand it at first, but I can understand it now. So the good thing about Antony is there's Romano confirmed this. Como and Italian teams have approached to try and sign Antony. He's given priority to Betis, but Betis know now they can't get him on loan. Betis wanted to get Antony on loan. They were hoping to get Antony on loan again, so they have to pay up. They now know they're going to have to do a permanent deal because otherwise Antony will just go to Italy because United have a lot of clubs interested in Antony. Betis also know that Antony's willing to take a significant wage cut to join them. The whole fan base wants Antony. Antony wants the deal. They want the deal. Man United want the deal. The deal should happen. Betis have just got to bid up and give Manchester United a better offer. Antony wants to play for Brazil, and I respect that. Do you know what I respect? Antony actually wants to play. He sees the World Cup coming up. He got back into the Brazil squad. He wants to play. And I love that. And you can appreciate that. Sancho, got the freedom he was fighting for and just said, nah. Chelsea, nah. Champions League club, nah. But it's a weird alarm going off. But Antony is willing to take a 50k a week wage cut, to go to Real Betis because he wants to play. He wants to get back in the World Cup. And that's what he wants. And that's the attitude you want. And Antony wasn't great, but you could never fault his attitude. Sancho wasn't great, and he had an awful attitude problem. Antony wasn't great, but you can never fault his attitude. The same with someone like Højlund. You can't fault his attitude. Garnacho, you can fault his attitude. Sancho, you can fault his attitude. Onana, you can never fault Onana's attitude. He might be crap for us, but you can't fault his attitude. And that's the same with Antony. Now, we need players with the right attitude and the right ability. We've got a couple of players with the right attitude. We've got a couple of players with the right ability, but very few with both. So, yeah, Antony wants to play for Brazil, and big up to Antony. Wait a sec. Alice, do you think Garnacho would take a wage cut to leave? Garnacho isn't on that much money at Manchester United, by the way. Like, Garnacho, I feel like he's on like less than 50k a week. Like Garnacho, if he leaves Man United, will probably want to double his wages. I mean, I can try and check what Garnacho is on. Let me try and check what Garnacho is on. One sec. But I don't think he's on a whole lot of money. Yeah, because we made this mistake of giving Brandon Williams like 75k a week after a few games. Yeah, Garnacho's on 50k a week, which is, it's a lot of money to us. But as a footballer, 50k a week isn't loads, and that's what makes Garnacho easy to sell. Like, Garnacho is on 50k a week, apparently, according to online. Højlund's on about 70k a week, which will make them easier to sell. Sancho's on 200k plus. So, Garnacho's, no one's gonna, like, if Garnacho leaves Man United, they're gonna be offering him 100k a week, realistically. Chelsea and other clubs as well. And that makes Garnacho easier to sell, I guess, with the wages that he's on. The 5 million we got off Chelsea means nothing as we have to pay his wage difference. Well, that's the thing. The 5 million we get off Chelsea, we may have to pay Sancho to leave because we had to pay a little bit of Wan-Bissaka's wage difference. We may have to pay Sancho 5 million of the money we get off Chelsea just to make him go to Napoli and get him out of the club so we can get a little bit of money for him rather than him leaving on the free and be stuck on our wage bill next year, which is crazy because when you look at the World Cup coming up, you look at the fact Sancho's only 25. He's got the World Cup coming up. He's got a fantastic opportunity to play Champions League football. To go, Napoli suits him. The league is slower. Sancho suits a slower league. He's got a fantastic chance to play Champions League football, to win something, to redeem his career at 25, get back in the England team. You'd think surely you'd take a wage cut to do that. But, surely he would. And if he's reached an agreement with Napoli, I'm assuming they've offered him something and he is willing to take a wage cut to do that. But if he's not, that'd be worrying. Natasha said, I would now say that Antony isn't our worst signing ever, as I believe Sancho's our worst signing ever. Everything about freedom. Yeah. For me, yeah. Do you know what? Sancho was the most excited I've been for a Man United signing in a long time. I think I was more excited when we signed Sancho than when we signed Bruno Fernandes because of the hype that came with Sancho and around Sancho. I was absolutely gassed and excited when we signed Sancho. I thought we'd signed the next sort of the guy that was going to compete with Kylian Mbappe. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the guy that I thought we signed when we brought Sancho in. And Sancho's first season wasn't great, but I defended Sancho so much in his first season. In his second season, when he took that long break, I defended Sancho. I got behind Sancho. I said, let's believe in Sancho. There's a good player. There's a good young player. He's been thrown into an unstable Man United environment. And he showed some signs when he came back from that break. And then his third season, he didn't start the first 3 games. And look, I would have started Sancho over Antony, but we were 3 games into the season. If we're 20 games into the season, it's different. But we were 3 games into the season. Could you not wait 3 games to force Antony outside? And Sancho had a drop and he misbehaved, and he would literally rather sit and not play football or not train for 3 whole months so he could force a loan move out because he was done with the manager because he played Antony over him. And that's the attitude thing. Everything about Amad Diallo is everything we expected from Sancho. Amad Diallo was treated 10 times worse than Sancho. Amad Diallo was dropped for Forsen. Amad Diallo was playing well and then would still get dropped. Amad Diallo did more in a Man United shirt than Sancho ever done. And Amad Diallo was getting dropped by Ten Hag. And look, it was ridiculous. But Amad Diallo, look at him. He didn't strop. He didn't refuse to play for us. He didn't fall out with the manager. He was frustrated. Look at Amad now, and look at Sancho now. It's attitude. Sancho is, and I've never backed Sancho so much in his first 2 seasons when he had the break when he was underwhelming. I've never backed a player so much for being crap in his first 2 seasons, but I really believed in Sancho. But it was the way that he acted. Whether Ten Hag was right or wrong, Ten Hag could have handled the situation better, but the way he reacted, forced a move, for me, that made me done with Sancho. Absolutely done with him. I can't lie. Garnacho could be a problem. I mean, Garnacho's the one, I like Garnacho as a player, but the attitude is the problem with Garnacho. I strongly believe he'll be a top player, and I think he's dangerous, and I think he misses chances and frustrating, but I think, Garnacho could be a really good player for us. I strongly believe that, and under Emery. But it's the attitude with Garnacho. It's the attitude, I understand why Garnacho said that in the interview. There's a small part of me that really agrees with what Garnacho said in the interview, but you can't say that. Maybe if you're Cristiano Ronaldo, or maybe if you're Mo Salah and if he was Mo Salah and had the season Mo Salah had, and then he got dropped in a final, you can potentially say that, But that's like Lucas Moura got Tottenham to the Champions League final, didn't start because Kane came back from injury, and he didn't have a hissy fit. It was, I don't think Garnacho was wrong with what he said, but he was wrong to say it. Do you know what I mean? You can't say that. And I think emotion was high. And this is obviously, one of multiple incidences that Garnacho's had with Amarin. It's a big problem. Do you think getting Sancho out will help free up much money? Not loads, it's more wages. Rashford and Garnacho are the ones that are going to bring in the money because of pure profit. Sancho is wages. The Sancho deal, if Sancho has agreed terms, it's the harder part. We can agree a fee to force him out and provide Napoli don't lowball us exactly. Sancho's reached an agreement with Napoli. We don't know what kind of agreement, but obviously it's an agreement personally. So it's an agreement with Napoli that he wants to join them. So I'm assuming it's personal terms. I'm assuming maybe it's a verbal agreement to personal terms. I would accept this amount, la la la. I'm assuming maybe it's a verbal agreement to personal terms. But that's the big bit. And I said, if you can get Sancho to agree terms with the club, that's the big bit. We just now need the fee. If you can get, a team to bid up for Antony, bid up for Rashford, and bid up for Garnacho, that's great. Because we know that Rashford and Antony will lower their wages to get out of Man United. So we just need a team to bid for them and bid a nice amount. We know that Garnacho isn't on crazy wages. So that's what we need. I'm going to get into a few more stories and updates as well. Someone said Bruno only scored 2 open play goals. But he played deeper, and 2 of them are free kicks. So if you take away, you take away penalties, he scored about 5 open play goals in the league from deep, and he got about 10 assists and most chances created. I don't know why people talk about Bruno's goal scoring numbers this season. He scored a lot of goals, but he played deep most of the season. That's one thing. He scored a lot of free kicks and he scored a couple of penalties, but he played deep. I feel like people were comparing like Bruno and Palmer stats, and it's like Palmer played as a 10, Bruno played as a 6 a lot of the season, most of the season. He did play as a 10 at games as well. But yeah, let's talk about Antony as well, because Romano did say this on Antony, so I wanted to get that up. Italian side Como have tried to sign Antony in recent days, but the Brazilian winger is giving priority to Real Betis' return. Manchester United are also aware of Antony's preference to continue at Betis next season. No club-to-club agreement. Why is this good? Just, again, Romano was confirming there are teams, Betis want to get Antony on the cheap, but there are teams out there that are willing to pay the fee for Antony. And there's teams in Italy. And that is just telling Betis, look, Antony wants you, Antony's giving preference to you, but if this team comes in and bids this for Antony and that for Antony, we're going to accept that. And if Antony gets bored of waiting because he won't be at Man United next season, he may go to Italy. He's given you priority, but this is us telling Betis. This is us 100% telling Betis to hurry up. That's what we're telling them to do. We're going to talk about Mbeumo in a second. I'm not nervous, and I will explain why it's taking time. But let's talk about Rashford quickly. So, Rob Dawson has said this on Marcus Rashford. There has been interest from Barcelona, Inter Milan, Juventus and Bayern Munich, as well as several Premier League clubs for Rashford, but United are set to receive a firm bid. Now, the price tag is clear. Manchester United put a clear 40 million price tag on Marcus Rashford. Marcus Rashford is also willing to lower his wages to play Champions League football. Barca like him, but they've gone for Nico Williams. Inter like him, Juventus like him, and Bayern Munich like him, but he's given preference to Barcelona, who want to try and get him on loan. Barcelona came to us a couple of weeks ago before they were in for Nico Williams and said they could only get Rashford on loan, they've got no money, and now they're spending 50 million to bring in Nico Williams. So I'm just going to tell you that about Barcelona. Inter are there, Juventus are there, Bayern are there, Villa have interest but PSR issues. Man United want Rashford to go. They put a 40 million price tag on him, which I think is a good price. He can play left wing, he can play striker. He's a very good player that's willing to lower his wages. I'd assume someone's willing to bid that, but I think a lot of teams are thinking it's Man United, they're desperate, he's fallen out with the manager, let's get him on loan. The problem with Man United is it's so publicly known, the stance on players. It's so publicly known that there's no way that Amorim is taking Garnacho, Rashford back at Man United next season. There's no way Sancho and Antony are allowed back. It was like last summer, when Ten Hag and Sancho made up a preseason tour, but we knew that Ten Hag wasn't bringing Sancho back. We knew that Sancho was going to go anyway. So Rashford and Garnacho might come back for preseason tour. Garnacho went on postseason tour and played minutes, but we know, and everyone knows, there's no way they're in the plans and they'll be on the bench if they're here next season. We know that. So I think that's the problem, because teams know that. They're thinking, well, they want Rashford gone. Let's try and loan him, because loan we can do cheaper because of the situation. Dortmund always looking to loan Sancho but never buy him. Real Betis were trying to loan Antony but not buy him, but now they have to buy him because there's competition there. Sancho, that's been the whole situation. Teams like to play around because it's Man United. It was also said by Rob Dawson that Rashford is planning to return to training with United next month if he has not agreed to leave, which I would expect as well. I wouldn't expect it to be all Enzo Maresca, where players are kicked out of training. I assume if they're not sold, Sancho, Rashford, Antony, and Garnacho will be training, because I think it would be silly not to invite those 4 players back to training. I know there's talk of them being dropped from the preseason tour, but I think if they're still here, they come back to training, they go on the preseason tour, and you act like they're in the plans. Because the only way you're going to get the bids that you want for them is if you act like they're in the plans. And that might disrupt elements of preseason tour, but that's what you need to do. Because if it's active that you fell out with them, if it's known that you fell out with them and you're desperate to sell them, you're never going to get the price that you want. So I think you take them back, you let them train, you take them on tour. I think that's what you do. That's what you do. Why has the Garnacho talk cooled down? It hasn't really cooled down. I think teams are waiting until the PSR deadline. So you got to remember, this is June. There's the PSR deadline on the 30th of June. A lot of clubs will not do anything or will not make any kind of bids till July because of the PSR deadline in June. I'm not worried. There's interest in Garnacho. There's a lot of interest in Garnacho, but you've got to think about the PSR deadline in June. Okay. So I think there's a lot of clubs that when it gets to July and they're cleared for PSR, they'll start putting bids in for Garnacho and see what other clubs are bidding. I think once one bid goes in for Garnacho, we could have 3. Because when you're talking about Mateus Tel going for 40 million, when you're talking about Kwanzaa going for 34 million, Malik Fofana and Jeremy Gittins being 45 million, we should be able to get 60 million for Garnacho. I think it will probably get more 50-55, but we should be able to get 60 million. And I think Garnacho's quite a good price. Also, considering he's not on crazy wages as well. Like, I feel like we should be able to get some decent fee in for Garnacho. So, yeah, after July 1st, I think we're going to have a lot more. Like, I feel like this next week could be slow. I'm going to be honest with you. I feel like this next week for transfers at United could be slow. Oh, breaking story coming out. Breaking story coming out from, I think it's Paul Hurst. Apparently, Monaco have approached Onana's reps over a potential move. Is coming out as well. So there's a couple more sources saying that Monaco have made an approach for Onana. So that could be one to watch. Doesn't mean he's going to go to Monaco. Doesn't mean anything's advanced. But there is now a few little bits of information about Monaco making an approach for Onana. So that could be one to watch. That's just come out now. But let's continue on into the next little bit of information in regards to what we have. So in regards to outs, the information that we do have, guys, is that there's a lot of interest in Garnacho, but I wouldn't expect anything till July, and I wouldn't worry too much about it. In regards to Rashford, there's Champions League clubs interested. He's willing to lower his wages, but is anyone willing to pay up? In regards to Sancho, there's now reports coming out from Di Marzio that Sancho has an agreement and has reached an agreement with Napoli. And he's reached an agreement with Napoli, Sancho. There's some kind of deal agreed between Sancho and Napoli, but it's sort of being reported, which suggests that, if Napoli can agree a fee with Manchester United, that move's going to happen. So that's the big move. The Muppeteers have said Antony leaving is expected to happen. There's a lot of interest in Antony, as Romano has said. Batiste and United, they all want the deal to happen. Antony's willing to lower wages. The possibility of Antony going is quite high. And then we've got some updates on Mbeumo. Luckcast did say again, United made a 55 million opening offer for Mbeumo, but it's slowed down since. The deadline of June 30th could be why. Maybe United are going to go back in July for Mbeumo after the PSR deadline. Maybe that's why Brentford want more. Romano did confirm that talks are still ongoing with Brentford and United. United is still waiting to agree a fee with Brentford. Tottenham are now looking elsewhere in regards to Mbeumo. And it has been reported by Graham Bailey that United and Brentford are close to agreeing a fee for Bryan Mbeumo. United will pay over 60 million with a fee around this level, always assumed. Brentford want to sell for 62.5 million after seeing Cunha go to that price. There's been a lot of updates, like half updates on Cunha saying talks are still ongoing, a deal is close. But we've been told, not Cunha, Mbeumo. We've been told in regards to Mbeumo to Manchester United for weeks, a deal is close. We got told by good sources 2 weeks ago, a deal is close. That's what we got told 2 weeks ago. A deal was close, and it's been 2 weeks. And if a deal wasn't close, if we were waiting on it 2 weeks later, and Sully, who is very credible with his information, good source of information, he's come out and he has given transparency, and just basically tried to say, we'll be transparent with you guys. Please refrain from believing constant non-reports on transfers. Seeing some reports on the same information being regurgitated for clicks to deceive United fans happens every summer. Getting tired of it. I do think a lot of these stories on Mbeumo being close might be guesswork. There was about 3 days ago, we had a lot of stories that the second bid was going in. A deal is close. I think it was a little bit of media guesswork. We had the second bid story, all of that. In regards to Mbeumo. But Romano has given an update on Mbeumo, and he has said, look, we're still working on it. There's a couple Manchester United fans that are worried that we've walked away. But Romano said, look, the talks are still ongoing between United and Brentford for Mbeumo. United want to agree a fee. Brentford are asking for a bit too much. We also know from Ornstein that Tottenham are looking at Semenyo. Like, there's a positive feeling. I'm going to tell you this now. Like, the Mbeumo scenario, it's boring. The Mbeumo situation at United is boring. I'm fed up of it. It's dragging on. It's incredibly boring. But the situation is United are confident. United are confident a deal will be done. Of course, the media have been lying to us about this and this and this and this, saying it's close and saying a second bid had come in, and it turns out it hadn't come in. This is just what the media had said the other day. And we obviously just report what the media said. But we do know that United are confident. We do know United believe this deal will be done. It's just going to take time. We were confident we were going to get Cunha. It took 4 weeks between knowing Cunha had picked us over rivals and actually agreeing a deal for Cunha and getting the here we go. And it's looking like the same for Mbeumo. And I wish, you look at the way Liverpool have moved this summer. Liverpool and City have gone and made 3 good signings already, and they finished way ahead of us, and they made 3 really good signings. And Liverpool aren't even in the Club World Cup, so they didn't even need to make those signings so early. Yeah, we're still here faffing on Mbeumo after finishing 15th. It's frustrating. It's annoying. You look at what Liverpool have done. You look at what City have done, what they spent. They're obviously the better financial situation than us. They're in the Champions League. And you look at us with 15th. We're messing about. We're getting further behind. It is so frustrating. It is so, so frustrating. But that's what the situation is. That is what the situation is at the moment. As frustrating as it is. What do you think will be the first sale? I think Antony. But then if we're to believe what Damasio is saying, that an agreement has been reached between Sancho and Napoli, and Sancho's come to an agreement with Napoli, that's the difficult bit. So it will be, if Damasio is correct, I think Sancho will be the first exit if Napoli are willing to pay up. We might be in the same situation now with Sancho and Antony. Damasio is saying, Sancho has some kind of agreement with Napoli, so that's on wages. And so if Napoli bid up, that should happen. We know that Antony has an agreement with Betis on wages, and he's going to lower his wages. We just need Betis to bid up. So we're in a situation now where there's a team that's interested in our players. Our players reportedly may have an agreement with the club on personal terms, but we need those clubs to bid up. That's what we need. We need the clubs to bid up. And it might take till July 1st because of the PSR deadline. It might drag out. It might take till July 1st because of this PSR deadline. Bear with me one sec. My phone has been proper bleeping. I'm just gonna do that. Do you think Onana will leave? I think it'd be difficult. I think it's possible, but I think it's difficult. I think we'd have more indication in July if Onana will leave. I think Sancho Betis will drag it out. This is the problem. How long are Betis and Napoli willing to drag stuff out? Napoli love to drag a deal out. Napoli love to try and get someone on the cheap. Look at McTominay last year. Napoli love to drag a deal out. Like, it could definitely potentially get dragged out. It really could definitely potentially get dragged out. But I do think because everyone wants the deal to happen, Antony's pushing, Betis are pushing, it shouldn't get dragged out, hopefully. It shouldn't be dragged out too much longer. What is the news on Paulinho? So there's been a little bit of talk about Paulinho to Man United, but it hasn't come from anyone credible. Basically, Bayern want Paulinho to go because Paulinho is a bit of an Agate. And now, because Man United need a midfielder and Bayern want to get rid of him, and he's been linked to United in the past, I think journalists are guessworking and linking us to Paulinho. For me, we don't need Paulinho. If you've got Agate, you don't need Paulinho. He wasn't great at Bayern Munich. I don't think there's much in the Paulinho links, being totally honest. I don't think there's much in the Paulinho links. BD4 says, Alice, why is there no noise about Casemiro? He was good at the end of the season, but that's all. He can't keep up a high level. I like Casemiro. He was good at the end of the season. He'd be great to have as a squad player because of his experience and someone to come in for depth. But yeah, I would want him as a squad player, not as a regular starter, because of experience, because of his ability. I think he's a great squad player. But when you're on over 300 grand a week, you can't be a squad player. That's the problem with Casemiro. And that's how United view it. They don't want to be giving Casemiro 300k a week to be a squad player. But they also know that Casemiro has done some good stuff in the last few months. He took Agate out of the side and he stepped up and he showed his leadership. And, he's one of the better players in the final. I think Dorgu and Yoro were the 2 best players in the final, followed by maybe Casemiro. But Casemiro, again, it's the wages. Unless Saudi are willing to come in and offer him wages, and considering how desperate Al Hilal were, I'm surprised they weren't moving for Casemiro, particularly when he was very good at the back end of the season. I think it massively depends on just the wages and all of that. I'm going to wrap up the live show in a second, guys, but I want to just get through a few live chats. Did you watch the Chelsea game? I only really watched about 10 minutes of the Chelsea game. I haven't watched the Chelsea Club World Cup games, really. I will watch it when it gets into the knockout, if Chelsea get there. But they did lose 3-1 to Flamengo. And I have to say, the South American sides, they've done well in the Club World Cup. But I knew the South American sides were going to do well in the Club World Cup. Because if you look at the European sides, the season is over. They all want to go on holiday. They're absolutely knackered. The South American sides are only in the middle of their season. So that's good timing for them. You know, they're at their peak. So, the South American side's been impressive. Agate's a warrior. I like Agate, but not for £50 million. Had we brought him for £30 million as a squad player, I like him, but there's limitations to show it. But I thought Agate between November and January, that 3-month period was really good, really key, really important. He's got limitations on the ball, and we need someone good on the ball. But I do like Agate a lot more than most people. I think there is a player there, and I think his legs and a lot of things that he brings is important. I think actually if he'd started in the Europa League final, we might have won, which might sound crazy. I like Agate, but I think out of all of the Ineos signings, he's been the least convincing. When you look at the price paid, if he's 25-30 million, it's not as bad. But when you look at the price paid, nearly 50 million, I think that's why he's maybe the signing I've got the biggest reservations around, I think, out of all of our signings. I don't know if you watched my video yesterday. I did talk about Aiden Heaven in my video yesterday, and I have to say, I think out of all our signings, Aiden Heaven is the one where I just feel like 1.5 million, that is a great bit of business. And Laurie Whitwell was speaking about this yesterday, about how Frankfurt were in. There was other Premier League clubs in for Aiden Heaven. He got higher financial offers and still chose United because of the Project Wilcox, his future role. And I think Aiden Heaven has been a great addition for Man United. I really like Aiden Heaven. I've been really, really impressed with Aiden Heaven. I think he suits Amarin's system well. And we're hearing that Aiden Heaven rejected some big offers from Premier League clubs. He had Frankfurt in for him for United. Did we dodge a bullet with Delap, who got pulled at 60 last night? He's still better than Jackson. I liked what I saw from Delap. I only watched about 10 minutes of the game, and I watched his cameo last game. I think Delap £30 million is good business. I think now if we sign Mbeumo and Cunha, and we're about to sign Mbeumo, then Delap for 30 million is good business because you've already got 2 proven scorers in Cunha and Mbeumo that I think we could take the risk with Delap more. It's only had we signed, some inexperienced wingers that don't score goals and signed Delap, I'd have been a bit frustrated. But for me, when you look at Osimhen not coming, you look at Jokeres wanting Arsenal, I do think we might regret not getting Delap. I think for £30 million, if it doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world. Whereas if you spend 85 million on a Keita, it doesn't work out. Like you spent 72 million on Højlund, it's bad. So I think that Delap will be good for Chelsea. I think he's tired as well. So I like Delap, and I think we could miss out. Anyway, guys, go and give Cass a raid. We're going to go over and raid United Cass, so give him a raid. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.